I want to turn to the war in Gaza now and the pressure that New Zealand is under to take a stronger stand. Now,
sorry to interrupt already. I do struggle with the word war in Gaza. You do think about war as two combatants going at it, not like one combatant just being able to hover because the other combatant has no weaponry to reach the helicopter and just sporadically target and shoot. So I'm just putting it out there. I do struggle with that word war for this, but we'll keep going.
Yesterday, I asked the Prime Minister to reflect on the pro-Palestine protest that was held over the weekend, calling on the government to impose sanctions. And here's what he had to say to me.
If you look at the trade ties, for example, between Israel and New Zealand, they are very, very small, very, very tiny, basically, zero. I get that if you're a big international country and you have a big trading relationship with Israel, that's certainly an that's certainly a route forward.
So basically what he's saying is, if you make too much money off Israel, you probably can't sanction. We're going to set our morality, countries set their morality based on their income from said location. That's what he's saying. So I guess what he's saying is, but we don't make much, so, we can sanction them maybe.
Well, isn't he almost saying it's not worth doing it for us because we trade so little with them? Which is, but yeah, well, if we traded lots of them, then you'd say it's too expensive to sanction them. So
probably fair for us to give Chippy a chance to answer rather than speaking all over it. So let's go.
What difference would sanctions actually make?
It's the fact that we have a small trading relationship with Israel doesn't mean we shouldn't do the right thing. Israel is well outside of international law, well outside of acceptable defence behaviour, and New Zealand should send a clear message that we're firmly opposed to that. Sanctions would do that. I think it's time for New Zealand to impose sanctions on Israel, and it's time for New Zealand to get on with it and officially recognise the state of Palestine. The government's clearly made a decision on recognition of Palestine. They're just not telling us what it is, and I think that's
an interesting point. They're going to wait a month to talk it over, like it's going to be better in a month or something. So Chippy's basically saying he thinks that they have made a decision. They're just keeping it to themselves at the moment. God knows why, but that's what's going on.
Really lacking in transparency.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because Labor now wants, as you've just said, New Zealand to recognise Palestine as a state, but you didn't do that while you were in government. Why the change now?
We took that position to the last election. A re-elected Labor government would have officially recognised Palestine as a state. One of the reasons that it didn't happen during my time as Prime Minister was Hamas's attack on Israel. That slowed things down. I think we can see now that Israel's response to that is totally disproportionate and totally outside of international law.
So there you go. I don't know that. I don't recall that. Don't know if you do, Clint, that they had a policy that they were going to recognise it. There is still a conversation, because I think probably all of us, most of us are on board with that. That doesn't mean there's also not a conversation to be had about what about Hamas, because there is a conversation to be had about legitimising their sovereignty, which they should do, but that means that Hamas gets some legitimacy in that. So there's still a conversation to be had. But Chippy's basically saying, elect us. If these guys don't do it, we will. And we took that into the last election. And yeah, I think that Luxon's not going to be able to avoid it for much longer. There's going to be recognition, and it's likely there could be sanctions. Any thoughts, Clint?
Yeah, I think there are some senior ministers who are very pro-Israel. You see Chris Bishop's one, hasn't said a word about any of the atrocities being committed in Gaza, but someone sprays something that could be construed as anti-Israel, and and he's all over it on social media about this dreadful graffiti. And obviously there was the comments from one of the ACT MPs about the protests on the bridge, and I think Seymour himself has been pretty pro-Israel in his stances. So I think there is division in the government, and it's a matter of whether it becomes too embarrassing for them to be so out of step with public opinion and world opinion on these things. And I think times things have changed. One of the first times I came on BHN, I think was early last year, and we were still feeling we had to be pretty careful about how we talked about things, and I can understand why Labour going into the 23 election wasn't broadcasting its policy to recognise Palestine statehood, and wasn't talking about sanctions against Israel at that point, considering October 7th.
It was interesting. We played the footage last night from the march over the weekend in Auckland, and Carmel Sepuloni was there. I don't think Chippy was there, but Labour had a presence there, and we asked the question last night. I wonder if Carmel's time at the march was in her personal capacity or professional capacity, or it could be in her personal capacity, but still the professional side of it agrees with them. And it sounds like what Chippy's saying is not saying that Carmel was there professionally, but the Labour Party is certainly on board with that. And I mean, like, how many things? It's stupid to say we're too small to make any difference, because that means we'd never do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we just don't know those nuclear weapons in the 1980s. We're too small. I mean, we can't make an impact. South African rugby night. We're too small. Not going to make a difference. I mean, even women for the vote. But we're a tiny country, too small. It's like, that's not how you make, humanitarian decisions based on your size and popularity. You make humanitarian decisions based on what's best. And what seems to be best is definitely, that Gaza gets recognised. And then questions, I think, I don't know if it's a morality issue or not, but certainly if any other, we did this the other night, if any other country in the world had sent rockets into 6 other sovereign states this year, would we be umming and ahhing about whether we should sanction them? Would we really? If it was Latvenia, let's make up a country, and they'd stuck rockets into all of the, would we be kind of going, we should probably, we'll see. No, of course not. Of course not. And that does come back to what you think you said, I think, Clint, which is there is this connection not just to some senior national MPs, but to that conservative Christian world that influences the right quite heavily. And it's talking about disproportionate response. That conservative Christian worldview has a disproportionate control factor in Western governments. You certainly see it in America, and I think you see it in elements of New Zealand as well. It's a big voting base in all Western countries, and they can't be seen to do anything that might lose them those votes. But it's time. It's time. It's just time.